It was that man again. That man, with his thick mane, brooding eyes and twinkling earrings, walked towards her, his gold armor glittering so fiercely under the blazing sun that it was blinding. His intense radiance threw tormented shadows, the wind suddenly whirling away the figure made spectral by the shadows, and snuffing it abruptly while she stood there, her arms extended, against the vast emptiness of sand. She woke up with a start, shivering slightly, her eyes wide, her breathing turning to quick gasps. She had seen the same dream. Again. Over and over again. And each time the persistently vivid dream spawned a haunted restlessness, pushing her into uneasy wakefulness. The night was quiet, the marbled bedroom quieter still, but Uruvi could almost hear the raging turmoil within her. She looked down at her arms, stretched and trembling, as if trying to grasp the intangible. As intangible as the elusive man in her dreams. Karna, she uttered the name softly, and whispered it several times over, convinced that this was the man she had loved since the day she had first seen him. She recollected her first sight of him, striding into the arena of the archery tournament in Hastinapur. The contest had been arranged by the royal patriarch, Bhishma Pitamaha of Hastinapur, to highlight the archery skills of his great-grandnephews, the 100 Kauravas and the 5 Pandavas. Against the flaming halo of the dipping sun, the young man had immediately attracted the attention of everyone present. The bustling arena went abruptly still and hundreds of eyes fell on the youth. He looked serenely divine, swathed in an almost ethereal glow, his back straight, his head held high, his strangely golden armor gleaming as radiantly as his handsome face, while his earrings sparkled in the rays of the setting sun. He was tall, taller than Arjuna, the Pandava prince, but did not loom large like Bhima, the second Pandava and the strongest man in the kingdom. Lithe but muscular with broad shoulders and a trim waist, the young stranger with his thick golden brown hair appeared almost godlike to Uruvi. Saluting Guru Dronacharya, the royal teacher of the Kauravas and the Pandavas, and Kripacharya, the royal priest, he walked straight up to a plainly astonished Arjuna to announce grandly, "I, Karna, shall perform every feat with the bow and arrow that have just been shown now, but with greater skill." He then proceeded to do so with contemptuous ease. As the princess of Pukia, Uruvi had a vantage view from the gold-leafed royal enclave perched majestically above the swarming crowd. Sitting amongst the regal entourage of the blind King Dhritarashtra and Queen Gandhari, Uruvi knew she had fallen in love with the stranger then and there, utterly and irrevocably. Mesmerized, she continued to stare at the handsome young man who was flaunting his phenomenal skills with more flamboyance than Arjuna. Uruvi was sitting next to Queen Kundi, the imperial widow of King Pandu of Hastinapur and the mother of the Pandavas. As her mother's childhood friend, Kundi was Uruvi's self-appointed foster mother. "Who's he?" Uruvi excitedly turned to the Pandava queen, who looked unexpectedly ashen and seemed to stiffen at her question. "Ma, are you not feeling well?" There was no reply and Uruvi saw to her growing horror that Kundi had crumpled into a quiet faint. Thoroughly alarmed, and the stranger forgotten for the moment, Uruvi knelt over the prostrate figure, calling anxiously for help just as Vidura, the youngest brother and chief counselor of King Dhritarashtra, took charge of the situation. Soon Uruvi was relieved to see her foster mother swiftly regaining consciousness. "It must have been the heat," murmured Kundi through parched lips, gathering her silken folds and her dignity quickly. Reassured, Princess Uruvi peered down the gallery to watch what was happening below. The show was supposed to be a display of skills by the two groups of cousins, the Kauravas and the Pandavas. But this stranger, who called himself Karna, seemed to have stolen the glory from the Kuru princes, particularly Arjuna. Uruvi watched Karna bow carelessly to the royal audience each time he strung his bow and effortlessly repeated the feats of Arjuna. Prince Duryodhana, the eldest of the Kaurava brothers, looked visibly delighted, his swarthy face wreathed in a huge smile. For a man who rarely smiled, he looked unusually euphoric. He rushed to the young archer and embraced him like a long-lost brother. "Whoever you are, fortune has sent you to me. My brothers and I are at your command," he announced. Events seemed to be happening too fast and decidedly not in his favor, realized an irate Arjuna. A promising and versatile warrior, he was the best Kuru archer. He blazed with an impetuous temper. "Whoever you are an intruder. You have entered uninvited and yet you dare compete with us. You shall sorely regret your arrogance the moment you taste defeat. I shall trounce you in a challenge." Karna gave a mirthless smile and replied evenly, "What is the use of a competition if one cannot be compared with others? Talk is the weapon of the weak, release your arrows instead of hollow words." "This young man is a great warrior," declared Bhishma Pitamaha in his deep baritone. "He has surpassed each of Arjuna's feats." Arjuna looked almost apoplectic. Glancing at his mottled face, Princess Uruvi could not suppress a giggle. "Spoilsport," she dimpled. "Can't face competition, can he?" The mood of the tournament had radically changed, the air seemed to thicken rapidly with palpable tension. Having surpassed Arjuna's feats, the stranger, encouraged by Bhishma's pronouncement, was now challenging Arjuna to a duel. Arjuna bristled angrily. He hurriedly bowed to his teachers, hugged his brothers and with his face flushed, stood ready for combat as Karna faced him. The sun suddenly disappeared behind a huge dark cloud and it seemed as if it would rain. "No, oh, no!" cried Kunti, getting up from her seat in nervous agitation. "They cannot fight, oh, no, they shouldn't." "Ma, please, it's fair enough," cried Uruvi, rising too in her excitement. "If Arjuna is as good as that young man, or even better as he believes, what is there to be so scared of? And who is this young man anyway? He is absolutely wonderful. Oh, I am enjoying this. Now for the duel," she chortled in glee. Vidura gave her a stern look, clearly disapproving of her bloodthirsty idea of enjoyment. "One of them could get badly hurt or worse, get killed because of immature egotism," he spoke to his sister-in-law Kunti, the mother of Arjuna. Kunti was extremely agitated and seemed clearly against the duel. Like Uruvi, the onlookers were wondering about the identity of this young man just as Kripacharya spoke to him. According to the rules of the game, only a Kshatriya, a high-born warrior, can fight another Kshatriya in a tournament, he declared, placing himself firmly between the two young men. "Arjuna, whom you have challenged, is a prince, the worthy son of King Pandu and Queen Kunti, the scion of the Kuru dynasty. Pray, who are you, son?" Uruvi felt a sharp pain in her arm. Kunti appeared drained of color while unconsciously gripping Uruvi's upper arm, her fingers biting into the soft flesh. She was staring at the youth with a strange emotion, as if his answer was of tremendous importance. The audience was hushed as everybody waited eagerly for an answer. Only the youth remained strangely silent, staring at the horizon where the sun was slowly disappearing. His handsome face was sapped of its radiant pride. His lips were clenched and his noble head was bowed, as if in shame. The proud archer suddenly appeared lost. "Why does he not say something?" Uruvi exclaimed edgily. "Why doesn't he reveal who he is?" The stranger was rescued from unexpected quarters. "We all know this young archer outmatches Arjuna in skills. If the combat cannot take place merely because he is not a prince, I shall remedy it easily," thundered Prince Duryodhana. "I proclaim this youth king of Anga." And with that, Duryodhana performed the required rituals to crown Karna the king of Anga on the spot. "Now you are a king, a royal personage who can fight any duel or challenge any Kshatriya," proclaimed Duryodhana, handing the new king his crown, his jewels and the royal emblem. Uruvi found herself smiling. Kunti, too, seemed happy that the situation had turned in favor of the stranger. That young man is certainly charming, Uruvi chuckled softly to herself. He has 2 women admirers already. Suddenly, the royal proceedings were interrupted. She saw an emaciated old man pushing through the heaving crowds towards Karna and, with a small cry, clasped the newly crowned king to his bosom. "My son, my son," the old man repeated over and over again, with tears coursing down his rattled face. Karna looked surprised and slightly uneasy for a moment before hugging the elderly man and touching his feet in solemn reverence. The crowd gasped. Uruvi caught her breath. The sheer nobility of the act had stirred her. The Pandavas jeered with contemptuous laughter while the crowd grew restive. Uruvi heard Bhima give a snort of derisive laughter. "King of Anga indeed. You are but a son of our charioteer," he sneered. "Your father is Adiratha, a charioteer in my uncle King Dhritarashtra's army. You are no prince, you are no warrior. You don't need a royal insignia or a bow. All you need is a whip to drive the horses. Or it would seem more appropriate if you had a brush in hand to clean the horses. You are fit to rule the stables, not the kingdom of Anga." Bhima's caustic words came like a whip, lashing the young Karna to steely silence. He seemed frozen, gazing intently at the sinking sun, his eyes twin dark pools of despair. Taking Karna's sudden silence as a sign of weakness, Bhima pushed mercilessly further. "You are no warrior, young man. You were strutting about so proudly a while ago. Where has all that arrogance gone? You don't deserve the crown, or the kingdom given to you so undeservedly by my cousin here. Take your father's whip instead and help him out," Bhima mocked cruelly. The tide turned. The cheering spectators had gone mute, now that the great warrior had turned out to be no Kshatriya at all but a lowly charioteer's son. But Uruvi reacted strongly to these hurtful words. "Bhima is downright mean." She turned furiously to Kunti, the mother of the tormentor. "How can he ridicule the humble and the helpless? Does that pride and pettiness befit a prince? And why are the elders keeping quiet about this gross insult being heaped upon a defenseless person? Why does Bhishma Pitamaha remain quiet when Bhima is so brutally ridiculing the warrior? Did he not proclaim a moment ago that Karna was a great archer, better than even Arjuna?" Below, Prince Duryodhana spoke up for the hapless Karna as well. "Such speech is not worthy of you, Bhima. It is valor which defines a Kshatriya does not define valor. You are known by the deeds done, merit has no pedigree. Tracing one's lineage is pointless. I can give you hundreds of instances of great men of humble birth. The bloodline of heroes, like the source of a mighty river, is never known. Those born in the Kshatriya clan have even become Brahmins. Vishwamitra, born a Kshatriya, became the greatest sage, obtaining the title of Brahmarishi from Lord Brahma himself. Our guru, Dronacharya, was born in a water pot, Adrona, and Kripacharya of the Gautama race was born from a clump of grass. Let's not talk about parentage as the finger might point apply to you too." Uruvi saw Kunti flinch and she felt a frisson of anger against Duryodhana for his irreverent insinuation. It was an acknowledged fact that the Pandavas were the 5 sons of Queen Kunti and Queen Madri from 5 different gods. They were not fathered by King Pandu, who was forced into celibacy because of an ancient curse. King Pandu had requested his wife Kunti to make use of the boon Rishidurvasa had once given her, that she could invoke any god and he would bless her with a son. That is how Kunti had conceived 3 of the Pandavas, Yudhishthira from Lord Yama, the god of Dharma and death, Bhima from Vayu the god of the wind, and Arjuna from Lord Indra, the king of the gods. Awkward questions may be asked about your own origin, Duryodhana continued derisively. Can a doe give birth to a tiger? Look at Karna, his golden armor, his shining earrings, his build, his confidence and the way he carries himself. He must be of royal blood. I am certain he is of celestial ancestry. We are talking about merit and skills, and Karna has more than proved that he is a worthy warrior. Unworthy of ruling Anga, did you say, Bhima? I consider that he is worthy of ruling this whole world. And with those contemptuous words, the Kuru prince took Karna by the arm, leading him to his chariot, and drove away into the dusk. What on earth is happening? Asked the blindfolded Queen Gandhari, mother of the 100 Kauravas, in rising bewilderment. Uruvi answered cheekily, I think Duryodhana has got himself a new friend. She turned to look back at the departing chariot on the dusty road, carrying the man she had just fallen in love with away from her. And that was the first and the last I actually saw of him, sighed Uruvi, her lips curling in an unhappy curve. Usually she wore a lovely, infectious smile. Either it was a flashing one which lit up her oval face, or a slow one suffused with an elfin charm. At the moment, she was grim, with a bitter ache in her heart, for he was still a stranger to her, and she wondered if her love was destined to remain unrequited. Her Swayamvara, when she would follow the custom of choosing the prince she wished to marry, was being planned for the coming month of Margashirsha, in winter, and here she was dreaming about a man she had only seen, but never met. His daughter's Swayamvara would be more grand than Draupadi's, King Vibhusha of Pukia had promised himself. Not because he was one of the more powerful kings of the time. Not because he was a close ally of both King Dhritarashtra and Vasudev Krishna of Dwarka. Not because he wanted to outmatch King Drupada, the surly, rancorous father of the dusky, doe-eyed Draupadi, now the consort of the 5 Pandavas. But yes, because he wanted to flaunt his beautiful daughter at the most ostentatious Swayamvara ever, to proudly present her to the world. She would eventually marry the most eligible of all her suitors, that fortunate one whom she favored. She was his little princess. Uruvi was the only daughter of the 6th king of Pukia, the erudite Vibhusha, and Queen Shubhra, an heiress to her father's legacy, his intelligence, and her mother's flaming beauty. Slender and petite, her loveliness was distracting, speciously masking her incisive wit. Though the burning fire in her eyes, the warmth of her smile, and the passion with which she articulated her thoughts were enticing, she was too spirited to be restrained, too proud to be cautious, and far too forthright to think of the consequences of her actions. She had a charming candor, a blithe audacity steeled with a stubborn resilience, which many admired but few appreciated. Most got carried away with her captivating beauty and her wit, and gazed at her in wonder. King Vibhusha was not apologetic about his adoration for his daughter. She was his only child, a gift bestowed on him a trifle late in life. He loved his wife, Queen Shubhra, in an indulgent, unfussy way, as he did his mother and his various nephews and nieces, but he clearly idolized his daughter. King Vibhusha stood tall and imposing, thinking of the object of his paternal pride. With his spare form, his gentle eyes and aquiline nose, he looked more like a poet than a warring king, more fit to hold a quill than a sword, mace or a spear. With skin the color of dull ivory and a shimmering silver mane, he looked more like a sage than a ruler. He thought the world of his daughter. She was beautiful as she was brilliant, she was kind as she was brutally frank, she was loving as she was tempestuous. As a child, she had never given him a moment's uneasiness. She was naughty and defiant, but never grossly disobedient. Even in her mischief there was an endearing impishness. She is my world, he confessed simply to Queen Shubhra whenever she gently chided him for over-pampering their only daughter. There are 2 types of children, one, whom you love naturally because they are your offspring and they become unconditionally yours the moment you hold them in your arms. But there is another kind, who besides this unreserved love heaped upon them, are enchanting because of their striking individual traits. Very early in life this kind of child becomes an individual who is born to win over people by her innate character and distinctiveness. There are qualities in the child that are so endearing, so impossibly appealing, that you immediately fall in love with her. She completely woos you over with her charm, and not just because she happens to be your offspring. Our Uruvi is one such child. Who cannot help but love her? There was truth in his statement, the mother agreed. Queen Shubra was a small, elegant lady with magnificent eyes, a straight delicate nose and a pale smooth skin. Her thick, abundant black hair, tied neatly in a bun at her nape, had a silver streak. Her smooth face was still unlined, the occasional criss-crosses emerging whenever she frowned, which was often enough when it came to matters concerning her growing daughter. Uruvi could be a very trying child, Shubra sighed silently, not daring to voice her thoughts. The spirited daughter had inherited her mother's glorious beauty and her father's sharp mind, and both sizzled in her short flashes of temper. No one remained unaffected by the little princess's vivacity and her inherent goodness. Even the sternest of the royal patriarchs, Bhishma Pitamaha, never hesitated to place her on his lap, and always offered her a basket of her favorite, freshly plucked jasmines each time she visited Hastinapur. The child was everyone's delight. "Why do you always wear white?" she once demanded of the grand old man as she perched prettily on his lap. "Even your hair is so white. Don't you like colors? See what a brilliant pink I am wearing," she said, and promptly placed her bright stole over his broad shoulders, which were by then shaking with indulgent merriment. Each time, the little girl would make the otherwise grim, taciturn great-granduncle laugh uproariously through his luxuriantly flowing beard. Or when she had irreverently asked the blindfolded Queen Gandhari about the piece of cloth tied around her eyes. "Why do you wear that?" she had questioned the Queen Mother, softly tracing her dimpled little finger over the silken cloth. "Do you like to play blind man's buff with uncle? You should remove the fold and help him about instead." Queen Gandhari had giggled and hugged the child close. "It's not often you see Gandhari smile, forget laugh," Kunti observed quietly to Queen Shubra, her friend. "Uruvi has an irrepressible naivete about her which is so engaging. That little angel makes the whole world smile, whatever she does," she gushed fondly. "And I hope she doesn't lose that charm when she grows up. If she remains so delightful, you will have a handful to deal with, dear. One which I am ready to take on any time you want," smiled Kunti. "She is going to be my daughter-in-law one day, mind my words." The smile had slipped from Queen Shubra's face when she heard Kunti's words, not wanting to think of the day she would have to part with her daughter. Kunti loved Uruvi like her own child. "Possibly because I don't have a daughter myself, and bringing up 5 boys can be quite demanding," she had laughed lightly, and proceeded to proclaim that the dainty little princess would be the wife of one of her sons. "That way, she'll be with me always." Queen Shubra had readily agreed, and the two friends had made a secret pact many years ago, one which both King Vibhusha and Uruvi were aware of but treated with indifference. Uruvi's father allowed her to break free of norms while her mother tried hard to restrain her from defying conventions. The daughter detested the unsaid decree which demanded that a girl of a good family should be hidden away till it was time for her to get married. She played with her friends in Hastinapur, sang and danced with her cousins, rode horses with the Pandavas and the Kauravas, and climbed trees with Bhima and Vikarna, the Kaurava prince. A good many princes and young men, wealthy or noble, or both, had asked for Princess Uruvi's fair hand in marriage, but much to her mother's consternation, Uruvi had refused all of them. Her apprehensive mother worried that her daughter at sweet 19 should still be single. She demanded why the girl was being so finicky, it was absurd to be so difficult. Uruvi was charmingly obstinate. She found reasons to reject every one of her suitors. So her exasperated mother thought of the only reasonable way out, a swayamvara. She was pleasantly surprised when her otherwise mutinous daughter agreed to it. The mother hoped Uruvi would finally garland a suitable prince, hopefully, the soft-spoken, handsome Arjuna. Kunti might have been sweepingly magnanimous about Uruvi choosing any one of the 5 Pandavas, but Shubhra confessed that she was most fond of Arjuna as a prospective son-in-law. He was surely the best choice, good-looking, kind and brave. They would make a good match, he so tall and handsome, she so slim and slight by his side. Heavens, she was already picturing them together. Shubhra's smile fell, downed with a growing sense of unease. The future seemed so perfect, but it was this but which kept coming between her best laid plans and peace of mind. "Have you asked Uruvi whom she wants to marry?" asked Queen Shubhra somewhat sharply, turning to King Vibhusha. "No, but she will choose someone at the Swayamvara anyway," her husband reasoned amiably. "Invitations to almost all the kings and princely suitors have gone out. We haven't missed any. Don't you think it would be more appropriate if we knew whom she will choose instead of us playing this guessing game?" persisted his wife. "If I know her well, she is likely to pick a boy whom I shan't approve of at all. She has an uncanny habit of annoying me. Oops, don't tell me she has fallen in love with that fat Dushasana. Now, that would be a very nasty surprise," said her husband playfully, but his queen did not look too amused. "She is more frank with you. Why don't you ask her yourself? In fact, I had assumed she might have confided in you by now. Girls do fall in love, you know," she reminded him pointedly. The king of Pukia promised to be the responsible father and a conscientious interrogator. Uruvi's sheltered life had been a pursuit of perfection, but her privileged world sometimes thwarted her. Uruvi imagined she came close to it as she painted beautiful forms of nature, but then she longed for more. In Karna she had found an appearance and personality so close to perfection that she could convince herself that her quest had been fulfilled. That man from nowhere had created a tumult in her heart each time he had strung his bow. As a young woman in love, Uruvi saw in Karna all the qualities of a hero who was not being permitted to be one. His flaws made him more interesting. At Hastinapur's tournament, when he had outdone Arjuna, he had been openly belittled as a charioteer's son and deprived of his right to duel with the Pandava prince. As the king of Anga, he was the inglorious ruler, looked down upon by royalty and the princes. As a noble warrior, he was cast off for not being a Kshatriya. As an eligible suitor, he was disgraced for being of a lowly caste, a Sutaputra, as Princess Draupadi had pithily reminded him at her royal Swayamvara. No, it was not very hard to fall in love with Karna, however unsuitable a suitor he was condemned to be. This man seemed to be born in adversity. Uruvi stared pensively at the small portrait she had painted of him and kept hidden in her bedroom coffer. As his tales of gallantry washed over from one kingdom to another, so did his saga of misfortune as the blighted man with a legacy of low birth, a Sutaputra. The story of his life was a fairy tale gone wrong. He was a beautiful orphaned baby, with bewitching kundals, earrings, and a golden kavach, armored to protect him, who had mysteriously strayed into a river and into the lonely lives of Dhritarashtra's charioteer, Adiratha, and his wife Radha. The young Vasisana, or Karna, as he was better known, because of his sparkling earrings, nursed a smoldering ambition to perform and excel and earnestly believed he was destined for a better life. He did not wish to be a charioteer like his foster father, but a warrior, an archer. With this dream, the young Radheya, the son of Radha as he was also called, approached the best teacher of martial arts in Hastinapur, Guru Dronakarya, the guru of the Kauravas and Pandavas, but the guru refused to teach him because he was not a Kshatriya. Undaunted but deeply disappointed, he went to Parshurama, the guru of gurus in warfare, and sought his blessings. Radheya soon became Parshurama's best pupil and showed the world his magnificent skills from a very young age. At the Hastinapur archery contest he outdid Arjuna, the rising star of the Kuru dynasty and the kingdom's most accomplished archer. But his moment of fame and credit crumbled when he was questioned about his birth and lineage. Once again, he was turned down for being a Sutaputra, and had it not been for Duryodhana, who in an unexpected burst of generosity had gifted him the kingdom of Anga, he would not have been what he was, the most formidable warrior in the country. Duryodhana had promoted the young Sutaputra to royalty, transforming him from Radheya, the son of Radha, to Karna, the mighty warrior and the king of Anga. Yet, pondered the princess, he was not allowed to bask in his well-earned glory. He was Karna, the king of Anga, the king with a crown of thorns, the king who was a Sutaputra. He was a king not by birth, nor by worth. He would always be the Sutaputra, the eternal pariah. And yet she, Uruvi, the pampered princess of Pukia, loved this man most people treated with such scorn. It was easy to fall in love with Karna, Uruvi decided, but it was difficult convincing others about its judiciousness. She wished to wed him one day, and if she dared to consider marrying him, she wondered what she was going to do about it. Or rather, how she was going to go about it. For one, how was she to get the discredited king of Anga invited to attend her Swayamvara with the respect he deserved?